Good afternoon, everyone. This is Two Vintage Sports Guys chatting. Today, we're going to have a special guest as Paul's still on vacation. I am Joe Rendacci, and I'm throwing it over to our both comic and sport card collector, Chris Gilbert. Hey, Chris.
Hey, good afternoon, Joe. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you're watching. And I'm Chris Gilbert. I'm from Atlanta. Originally, I lived in Philadelphia, and I was a little leaguer. I was in all kinds of sports, but I was really very keyed in baseball in the 70s and 80s, and have continued to collect over the years.
All right. Well, thank you, Chris. So we have another guy from Atlanta. You guys from Atlanta just love to tell us all you're from Atlanta.
Yeah,
Never tell anybody
I'm
where
a
you're
Dunwoody
from.
kid. I'll admit that openly, but I spent the first 12 or 13 years in Philly, so I like to think that I'm a good mix between the North and the South.
That accent is long gone, but well, there's no Southern drawl either, so you're almost
I'm
like
fairly
a
neutral.
Midwesterner with
That's
no
fair.
actual accent. But anyway, all right, well, let's jump into what's going on. We're going to talk about two different things. We'll start with the Ali Frazier heavyweight bout last night between the Braves and LA. Why don't you tell us a little about that fight?
Well, it's funny, you can't see me right now, but I am staring at Muhammad Ali's signed trunks, which I have had a copy of since the Atlanta Olympics. I had an opportunity to meet him back when they came in for the Olympics. And I'm actually doing this podcast staring at a signed picture of his trunks of Muhammad Ali. And, the Braves traditionally, I think most Braves fans know this, the Braves aren't big fighters. I've always said they're lovers, not fighters. They love the game. They're out there to play. And so last night's Lopez Soler little bout was a real surprise for me. I mean, not just as a Braves fan, but Soler also happened to have been a Brave in the last couple of years. So it seemed odd that you had potentially two former teammates fighting each other. Certainly people who know each other.
Yeah, so when I watched the video of it there, and I'm listening to them saying they're throwing haymakers, I don't know, look more like a slap fight to me. I think at the end of the day, they're all afraid of hurting each other and hurting their contracts. It doesn't look like anybody really brawls anymore for the sake of
Well,
pride.
as you know, I've trained in mixed martial arts, so I'm a black belt in American Kempo karate. That was not a fight. Lopez was backing off before the swings started, and I would characterize those as haymakers. You could see them coming from Jersey, right? Those swings were not very eloquent swings.
Well, and he didn't even throw his glove off until it was almost over. If you really want to get into a fight, you're going to get rid of that glove a little quicker than he did.
Yeah, I mean, you got to wonder if Lopez was still a little burned about the home run. I think Sawyer hit a home run in the first inning. It might have felt like he came back to,
and then he tried to hit him. So, I mean, that's why he charged him out there.
There you go. And that's baseball, right? I mean, we don't see it like we used to, but when you throw to hit somebody, you're going to get a reaction, and they got a reaction. But it's odd to see the Angels and Braves out there fighting. It really is.
I'd rather watch Major League when they fight each other. That's still the best movie. We'll have to do a sports movies podcast one day.
Well, I know you're very into hockey, and I went to a lot of hockey when I was younger. My wife loved it as well. But part of the hockey is the action and the fighting. I'm glad it's not prevalent in baseball anymore, because I think baseball, being America's sport, I think it has a little bit different, just a lot more kids in baseball, I think, than hockey. But that's my opinion.
I mean, hockey, you signed thugs that can only fight and can't hit a puck, right? Like that's the Ty Domies. You go down the list. There are movies that just glorify the fighting. And the old joke is you go to a fight and a hockey game breaks out. That
is absolutely fair. And I remember those movies with affection. They were a lot of fun.
Slapshot, right? So we've already mentioned Slapshot, Paul Newman. We got Major League. We're going to have to do a whole sports podcast.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Slapshot, though, being particularly fun because it definitely leans into that narrative. No doubt about it.
Oh, the Hanson brothers.
The Hanson brothers. I couldn't remember the name. Yep.
The three of them were actually minor league players, and they couldn't act for anything. And they were out there really hitting everybody they could. But that was 1976 in the good old days, and that's long gone. But let's transition to some rookies here. Why don't you tell us about what you have as far as some Braves rookie cards that you're?
Yeah, I mean, being a collector, and I think you and I've talked about this offline from time to time, that the collecting has changed a lot, and data and AI are a big part of that, right? Because we now see these players when they're in their teens, and there's not a lot of surprise when these folks come up to college. They've already been looked at. So it has changed the way as a collector you collect, and you do have to make, you do have to place bets. I mean, it is a little bit of a gamble. Who are the players you think are going to make it? Pitchers have a tendency to either, as a collector, all or nothing. They either do really great, like a Paul Skeens, or they burn out, or they go somewhere else. I've had a couple players that I've been looking at the last couple of years, like Hurston Waldrop for the Braves and Didier Fuentes. Didier was called up last year, I think, for a couple games, did what he needed to do and was sent back down. But I look at Didier as someone who's most likely going to be on the roster this year for the Braves. And, Braves pitching is critical. I mean, you look at the Braves' success in the past, it's all been predicated on pitching. We all remember the Maddox, Glavine, years, Smoltz. I mean, those guys were just.
And Avery. Don't forget Avery.
And don't forget about Avery. And of course, my buddy, John Rocker. John's a personal friend, so I'd be remiss not to mention John. John played with intensity. And so for me as a collector, I like the players that have played with intensity. In fact, when I look at the players that I've met over the years, I don't know that you remember this, but when we were working together, I took Pete Rose to lunch. Opportunity just a few years ago before he passed to meet Pete Rose. I always gravitated toward those players that, they called him Charlie Hustle. If he were on the diamond, he was hustling. And I know he had some extracurricular challenges.
They called him a lot of things. Let's not go down to Pete Rose.
Fair enough. But I think for me personally, the players that I want to meet are the players that loved the game, that were intense about the game. And you can say what you want about his other activities, but when he played ball, it was always 110%.
It was Charlie Hustle when he was knocking out Ray Fossey at home plate during the All-Star game?
You got it.
Never played well again. So did you get Otis Nixon and John Rocker to sign their cards?
You know what? I never got Rocker to sign a card. Otis and I are still very close. I do see John at least once a year. I probably should have his card signed. But we're close enough that, it's almost embarrassing to pull him out at this point. But I do, again, I still place bets when it comes to players that are up and coming. And I mentioned Didier Fuentes. I like his style. I like his pitching. I'd say the same about Hurston. I tend to gravitate towards those cards and those players that, I think are going to make a difference, or that I know that are putting in 110%.
All right. Well, let's talk about probably the most talked about rookie today, especially since he just signed I believe, 9-year, $140 million extension. What's your thoughts on Connor Griffin, and what's your thoughts on which card we should be looking for out there?
Well, Joe, and I know you're a Mets fan. I'm a Braves fan. That makes us underdogs, just by the nature of that fandom.
You're another mortal enemy, just like Ricky. Back-to-back days. I got to find better friends.
And Ricky said it yesterday, right? Like he thought Skeens was going to go to the Dodgers, right? Because the Dodgers are the financial powerhouse. I don't agree with that. I like Podcast 7, but I think that Ricky was off on that. I agree with you that the Pirates are going to do whatever they can do to retain Skeens. And he's putting butts in seats. So let's not forget, that's a big part of the sport. But I will say, I think the Pirates organization, they brought up some great players. Bubba Chandler's another one. I've collected some of Bubba Chandler's cards, and I've watched his value, really rise here, especially in the past year. Connor, I think a lot of people saw Connor coming. But what's interesting, and I know we talked about this just briefly offline, is that his card has dipped in value. His card, I don't know how much it dipped in value. I wasn't following it last week. But when it was announced that he was going down, there was a valuation change, and it was just a temporary move. They've come out and explained, kind of why they did it. But, that does affect card values. So as a collector, you have to pay attention to what's going on, and you have to pay attention to what's going on behind the scenes. For a lot of people, they thought maybe he was getting sent down, and it really wasn't a send down. It was a temporary adjustment. It was a move to get him more comfortable as they brought him up. And as it turned out, right, he was back and announced to the team less than a week later.
I think you nailed on something. You just said, as far as when you see these guys coming, and he's been one of the most touted um, up and coming prospects for a while. Everybody's going to be ready. Everybody's going to jump on it.
You
Everybody's
got
going to
it.
buy them. So we're looking at his 2024 Bowman Chrome uh, first auto Connor Griffin, and it's $1,675 in a 9 uh, rating. So where do you think that sits? Is that a good investment right now? Is this thing going to
I
be?
think that's a bit high. I wasn't buying Connor Griffin at that level, but to that point, JJ Weatherholt, there's a few players over this last year that have pre-commanded numbers that a lot of people say, are they really going to get there? And I think in some cases they will, and the values will continue to go up. So if I could predict this, I would probably be retired. Because it's, again, one of those things. You never know when someone's going to get injured. You never know when someone's going to be out or sent back down. So it is a bit of a gamble. I like to take a risk on people that aren't the people that everyone has their eyes on. The people that maybe they should have their eyes on, or the ones with the stats that just aren't getting the attention. And of course, some teams are getting more attention than others. I mean, there's a lot of the Pirates have not been very successful, but some of the Pirates players and up and coming players have been, extremely valued and extremely looked at. And I don't disagree with Ricky's comment on podcast 7 that the Dodgers aren't getting some of the best pitchers in baseball, right? They've proven that they're willing to stretch out and pay money for the right people. I think
Well,
you guys also made the point
as you
that
say, and we discussed within doing that, and that becomes the question. So let's jump over to the Dodgers as
sure.
they just beat Toronto again, following last year's World Series, their ridiculous last-minute World Series win for back-to-back because they go for the trifecta here. And what cards? I know you got a great old card that I want you to talk about as far as the Dodgers.
Yeah, I mean, I was a Pee Wee Reese fan. So you can't tell in a podcast, but I'm a towering 5'6", 5'7", and the tallest person in my family. So some of those older, smaller players, I've always been a fan. My father was a Dodgers fan. I remember being in high school, and I was still collecting in high school, and I was at a flea market in Atlanta. I just moved to Atlanta from South Florida, and I was just sort of kicking around, not looking for anything in particular. And I found the 1953 Pee Wee Reese Bowman color card, which arguably is one of the first action cards, certainly one of the first color cards. You can make an argument that there were action cards before that, but the 53 Pee Wee Reese was really the prize of my collection. I think I've sent a copy of that over to you. It graded in a
Yeah,
1.
they're looking at the picture right now when I say this because I'll edit it in at that point. What
It's a pretty good
year
looking
was
one.
that?
I'm going to say it's a pretty good looking one. And I'm proud of my 15-year-old self for keeping it in at least decent shape.
15. So you bought it 42 years ago?
It
Bought
wouldn't have
it
been quite
in
that long. Maybe I was driving, so maybe I was 16 or 17. But yeah, it's been that long.
Wow. So you got it what in the 80s, right? And at that
Yep.
point it was 30 years old. And how much did you pay?
I think I paid $22 or $23 for that card, and I would have been about 85 or 86.
Yeah, that's about right. I mean, the condition it's in, and a lot of things we had an opportunity to buy that would be worth a lot more nowadays that we didn't. And as I mentioned with Ricky, as we're buying all these dumb baseball cards in the mid '80s, did any of us grab the Jordan rookie in '86?
It's funny you mentioned that on podcast 7, and I go back to where I was at that time. I was working for Champ Sporting Goods my junior and senior year of high school, and there was a new phenomenon that happened that year. It was called Air Jordans, right? The Air Jordans came out, and there I was selling them. A high school kid. I bought a couple pairs. I had the foresight to buy a couple pairs. I didn't save them over the years. I wore them, but I should have been tipped off back in 85, 86 that collectibles were going somewhere, because I
But we were
remember
collecting baseball cards. Why didn't
well,
why didn't either of us
it,
pick up a Jordan? We saw him coming all the way from North Carolina, and the
you
winning
got
shot. He didn't surprise anybody.
Well, and that's the point, right? The shoes were flying off the shelf. There were lines around the mall. First time that phenomenon really happened other than concerts. And I should have had the wherewithal to pick up some of his rookie cards because I knew better. But, who knew the value would be where they are today? I mean, it really, back then you would say, you would make an argument not to be a card collector, not to be a CAR collector, because they didn't go up in value. Well, I have a 68 Camaro. Let me tell you, that's gone way up in value, right? So the things that we were told not to collect for value have turned out to be valuable. It's we're in bizarro world in a lot of ways, but I think that's probably one of them when it comes to collectibles.
Bottom line is, you and I should own that Jordan rookie because we were collecting cards at the time. Should have saw it. Should have had the foresight. We
100%.
What it could
And
have.
I had the opportunity to meet him in Charlotte. I was with the chief of the Cherokee Nation, Chief Michelle Hicks, and the chief brought me as a guest. And I didn't bring my cards. I didn't bring anything for him to sign because, within the last couple of years, it's very clear he doesn't like to sign. So I didn't want to be that guy. But to your point, I've had opportunities over the years that I just never took, and I am kicking myself a little bit.
Well, with Jordan, I know there was a controversy with his rookie card because apparently the primary controversy, I'm just going to read it, surrounding a rookie card 84-85 was the NBA banning his red and black Nike Air ship shoes, which violated the league's uniformity rule.
That's right.
Nike utilized this. So because of that, and I remember that there were just the controversy brings up then which is his actual rookie card of value. I guess that's the key word, of value.
When I could be mistaken, and I'm not reading this quick enough, but I believe it was all about the color of the shoes on the court. They didn't want the courts marked up with colored shoes. I think that was part of the controversy.
As you can see, the 86 Fleer rookie card scam was because there were counterfeit cards also. Again, plenty of people saw this coming. We just didn't, apparently.
Well, I like to think and tell myself I didn't collect Yankee cards because I didn't like the Yankees. The truth
I hated the Yankees, but I still had them all because I just bought pack after pack after pack. I wasn't going to throw them out.
Well, and I traded them. So I remember fondly sitting in friends' basements doing card trading in the 70s and just giving away those Yankees, even Mantle. And I just I wasn't a Yankee fan. But now looking back, and I bought Yankee cards since then. I bought a Mantle that was supposed to be and I'm going to blank out on the year, but I bought a card that turned out to be a fake card. In fact, I bought 3 or 4 cards from the same guy in Tennessee, and I made it a point to go after him. I worked with somebody who verified that they were fake. I'm not sure if I should do a plug or not, but Just Cards in Atlanta is fantastic. Joe, who runs Just Cards, and that team, to me, there's one of the better card stores in the country, certainly in the Atlanta area. What I love about them is they will validate cards. I think don't quote me on the number. I think it's somewhere around $2, and they will pre-grade a card for you. They will also tell you whether a card is fake or not fake. The 3 mailer cards I got from this guy turned out to be fake, and I went after him. I haven't concluded that legal action yet, but and I've never sued anyone in my life over anything. I did it because I think the hobby needs it. I think the hobby needs to get rid of people who are.
Yep. To your point, it's funny, and we're both comic collectors as well as cards, and with all the CGC now or PSA, there's something to be said for not being able to hold and smell a card or a book anymore, but there's something to be said to have it validated that it's real and not run into your Mantle 3-card Monty scam there. So
well, these were pretty good fakes. I got to give it to him. It took a professional, pretty high level professional to call this out and say yes, it's a fake. It got by me. It got by a couple other people before it got to Just Cards. And again, they do a great job. I mean, that pre-rating system they have. I know other card shops actually send some of their clients and their clients' cards to Just Cards.
Right.
So I think they've got a great program there, and it's worth a mention.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, and just like that, this episode is concluding. I want to thank Chris Gilbert for joining as a guest host today, and we will have you back if you are so inclined. And final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Players have to stop playing on the off season elsewhere. I'm still a little ticked at the Braves. I'm a firm believer that Ronald Acuna Jr. got hurt in Venezuela and then got hurt in July of 2021 on the Braves. I'm not thrilled with some of the moves the Braves have made, and letting their players play other places in the offseason is going to be my pet peeve the next couple of years. We'll see how that plays out.
Well, since you wanted to go there, then I will end this with Edward Diaz, who got hurt in that last WBC, jumping up and down at home plate, celebrating his team winning. He didn't even get hurt playing.
Yeah.
So, and that cost us a year and a season.
I mean, look, things happen. I'm real world, but putting that much pressure on your body year round when you're making 20, 30, 40 million a year seems irresponsible to me.
Well, they said that Skeens, his 2 starts led to him barely, he didn't even get out of the first inning in the opening day against the Mets.
Saw that.
So
yes,
there you go.
And I'm a big Skeens fan, but not everybody's perfect. We'll see how he does over time. I think he's going to be a Hall of Famer, but we'll see how that plays out.
His outfielder couldn't catch the ball twice, but still he was getting hit around that game. And that's it. All right, Chris, thanks you, and goodbye, everybody. Take care.
Goodbye.